I want to talk about the best drink that you could possibly drink throughout the course of the day to improve insulin resistance. Now, the reason that this drink is going to have such a profound effect is because it actually blocks the absorption of fructose. Now, fructose is not necessarily bad when it comes from fruit, right? But we have to look at a study here before I can get specifically into the details of this drink. Now, I know that attention spans are shorter these days, so I'll give you the drink. It's green tea. If you want to click off this video, that's totally fine, but at least do me a service and leave a comment and share so it helps the algorithm. But for those that really want to learn why and when to consume this, we're going to pepper that in throughout the video, but I have to explain how fructose contributes to insulin resistance by referencing a very interesting study. After today's video, I popped a link down below for Timeline Nutrition. If you're concerned with longevity and you're looking into the research here, urolithin A is something very interesting. It's a compound that comes out of pomegranates, but only a small number of people actually synthesize it. So only 40% or so of people actually turn pomegranates into this compound called urolithin A. Urolithin A drives up what is called mitochondrial biogenesis, and it drives up what's called mitophagy. So essentially, it's autophagy of the mitochondria. If you don't know what that means, basically you're allowing the powerhouse and the energy manufacturing of your cell to go through a recycling system and get stronger. That's really what we're looking for. So in the world of longevity science, there's very interesting stuff. So I popped a link down below for you to check out Timeline Nutrition. And if you use that code down below, that's gonna save you 10% off your entire purchase. So it's code Thomas10, saves you 10% off through Timeline Nutrition, link down below this video. This study was published in the Journal of Clinical Investigation, and it was a metabolic ward study, so it was very, very clear. They had subjects in a metabolic ward. They had them consume 75% of their calories in the exact same way. So very controlled, both groups ate 75% of their total calories with the same exact foods. The only difference between the two groups is after that 75%, the remaining 25% came from either pure glucose drinks or pure fructose drinks. Now, what they found was nothing short of amazing because the calories ended up being the same, but one group had a bunch of fructose, one group had a bunch of glucose. They found that the fructose group had massive decreases in fatty acid oxidation, so massive decreases in the amount of fat they were burning, massive decreases in insulin sensitivity, meaning their cells were more insulin resistant and weren't receiving glucose as well, and massive decreases in energy expenditure, meaning they were literally burning less calories at rest. They also found that there was a significant increase in cardiovascular disease risk factors, risk markers, right? So increases in LDL, changes in other things with the high fructose group. Now, this doesn't mean that fructose is the end of the world, okay? Like, you're probably not gonna get 150 grams of fructose in from fruit. It's probably just not gonna happen. But when you're consuming sugary foods and processed stuff, that stuff adds up with the high fructose corn syrup and the fructose there. What am I getting out of this? What does this have to do with insulin resistance? Well, hear me out. Remember how I mentioned that fatty acid oxidation went down tremendously? Well, when we have high amounts of fructose, fatty acid oxidation goes down. It means we're burning less fat, which means we actually store more fat in the intramyocellular area of our muscles, so intramyocellular lipids. So we store fat in our muscles, which impedes the signal from insulin, okay? So that means that by having less fat oxidating and more fat in the muscle, we become more insulin resistant. As a matter of fact, the leading cause of insulin resistance is not sugar, it's decreased fatty acid oxidation and the fat building up in the muscle messing up the signal. So what we need to be able to do is decrease fructose intake, but that's not easy for everyone to do. This is where green tea comes in. And it doesn't just have to be green tea. There's some foods that contain compounds too. And it has to do with EGCG, which I'm sure you've heard of before. EGCG is the main, most powerful catechin compound in green tea. And this research comes directly from Phytotherapy Research Journal. This research suggests that EGCG directly blocks the transporter for fructose. So you're literally not getting as much fructose into the bloodstream because you're blocking the transporter. It's called GLUT5. This little shuttle bus normally takes the fructose, brings it into the bloodstream, to the portal vein into the liver, and does its thing. Well, what does this mean for you? It means that, well, the more that fructose is coming in, the more you're decreasing that fatty acid oxidation. Now, to a certain degree, of course, I'm not against fruit. I eat a fair bit of fruit. The point here is that if we block this bus, we can get away with more of this fructose with less getting absorbed. So when do you want to do this? Well, green tea on an empty stomach is tremendous because green tea on an empty stomach can drive up all kinds of metabolic processes. It can drive up AMPK, can help you burn fat. So green tea, on an empty stomach can reverse this whole process. Otherwise, you want to sip on green tea alongside any carbohydrates. But what about in the afternoon when you don't want to have like green tea and caffeine? Well, ginseng can have a similar effect. And a lot of times you'll find green tea that's decaffeinated that they add ginseng to kind of get an energy effect without the caffeine. But decaffeinated green tea is completely fine. But what if you don't want to have any tea? Like what if you really don't want to risk the caffeine or anything in the afternoon? Well, it turns out that cranberries, strawberries, cherries, and blackberries, and to a small degree kiwis, but they're so high in sugar, those fruits have a lot of EGCG in them, not as much as green tea. I mean, green tea, you could pretty much have 0 calories and get this fructose blocking effect. But if you consume just maybe a little bit of cranberries that aren't really that sweet unless they've been sweetened and dried, that's a good impact. Also cherries, which yeah, they can be very sweet, so you gotta be careful there. But really when we're looking at this, strawberries and blackberries are very low carb, and the net impact of being able to block fructose alongside already being low carb makes it a really great thing. In fact, if you've ever had like strawberry infused green tea that you've made at home, that might not be a bad thing to do. Like make a batch of green tea iced, put some strawberries in there so you're getting the polyphenols and the effects of the strawberries and you're kind of having a double whammy. I know I sound like a woo-woo weirdo witch doctor, but I try to be proactive and look ahead on these things. The bottom line is that it's not directly sugar causing the insulin resistance. It's the intramyocellular lipids blocking the signal, and it's the inflammation blocking the signal. So if we can take care of the absorption of fructose to a certain degree, we can mitigate some of this. So green tea fasted to have a net positive impact and sort of reverse things, and green tea or strawberries and blackberries alongside higher carbohydrate meals to help mitigate some of the risk that goes with it. As always, keep it locked in. I'll see you tomorrow.